It's currently 10:40, December 21st of 2025. December 21st, 2025, 10:40 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm still in Florida. I'm still in Clearwater. I want to get through a few things before I get the intro down the way. So the intro, okay, you know what? Let's do the intro because people will stay for that. Hello, welcome to our first news. Today we'll be doing another one. What you say about me is what you say about society. Now, I do want to get through another thing. Is let's break down what we're gonna go down here in the video first. So, before I make a news video, we're gonna make this transition of the video so that you don't only think, because like the previous video is gonna be about the Epstein files being deleted. So this one's gonna be a more calm video. If you want to skip it, skip it. But if you want to hear about it, hear about it. This video is gonna be about me discovering anime. Right? Anime as a whole. I could do a music discovery thing, but anime, I already did a music discovery thing. I feel like anime right now, probably something I've barely talked about enough on the channel. I need to talk about it, not play it, not show you it, not show you a VTuber, like just in general anime. So I do have an analyst profile on my channel. I hope and I wish, I probably do. There's gonna be an analyst profile link over there. I do have an analyst. The analyst thing is basically all animes I've been watching. I'm watching one by one. I still have a few left to go, basically. But I want to talk about how I discovered it. So how I discovered anime in the first place is quite a story. Actually, let's say I begun the same way as most Westerners would have when they discover anime, is that they don't know what anime is. They don't know what anime is. They don't know what, if they watched it was anime. They don't even recognize that if it was anime. You're like so young that you don't know what it is, right? You think it's cartoons. Right, like everybody else says is, oh, this is just a cartoon thing, right? It should be easy enough. No. Most of you people are probably still at this stage in your like 20s. I'm 20. I'm in my second decade. By the way, happy second decade. We're about to hit the new year, and then soon my channel's gonna hit 8 years, so I must at least say something about anime, right? I did my VTuber thing. I should say something about anime, because I have a VTuber video coming around. So, you know, I have a news video, but I also have a VTuber video, and that's gonna be real soon. So when did I discover anime? I discovered anime, not that I went through my memories for a bit, because I did this for a while, is that anime have been discovering since around the 2010s, early 2010s. Since the 2000s? No. If you say that I might have found something anime back in the 2000s, that could be true. Say if I found a toy, maybe I passed by something in the store and it looked like it was anime. Yeah, no, I don't think that will count. Probably when I discovered anime is probably when I first interacted with something that appeared to be anime and I just didn't know it was anime. One of the very first things I discovered that was an anime, funny enough, was some of the very first 5 animes that I discovered was quite early on. I think I said it in my Discord server. It was a water anime. It was, of course, Dragon Ball. There was some Pokemon involved, but I think Pokemon was a bit after. Pokemon was just something that was on the TV. And I think Dragon Ball was just on something that my dad was interested in before I was even known, that before I even knew what Dragon Ball was. It was on the TV channel called Unimas. Unimas used to broadcast that stuff. Episodes usually on their broadcasting service back in the day when we used cable. Yeah, insane, right? I used cable, a wired connection, analog. We still had that. We still had DVRs, VHR. I know. I can go all day about that. Let's say VHR and all these other older analog systems that my parents used to. Then they'll buy the antennas for our TVs. We don't even have those for our TVs. Now modern TVs don't even have antennas. They just have them inbuilt inside, like their own unique ones. Some of them might still have them. Some of them might need them, but most of the time, you don't need an antenna for a TV. You're never gonna see like turn the antenna around so it works. So this was during a very long time ago. Like this is when I haven't even been able to first point the groundwork for MM7 yet. MM7 was like some of the very first things, and it wasn't even called MM7. So y'all know MM7 had a name before it was called MM7, but MM7 was some of the very first things I've ever thought of officially as a human being, right? When I was wanting to do something for myself, MM7 was some of the very first things. So anime, discovery was like a long time ago. In 2000, let's say let's say 2011 or 12. Now, I was in elementary school. I was still going through normal natural work. I had simple maths to do, simple science, simple reading homework. It wasn't too tough. They gave you like 1 page to fill. It was just simple questions about whether this guy had 30 tomatoes after this equation, whether this person had, let's say, 12 hats left after this equation, whether we had to go, whether water evaporates and why, you know, stuff like that. Simple stuff that everybody should understand. But so you know, just to leave a side note, Jab, for the people who are religious, who still think that water evaporating is because of God, you need to go back to school. I'm sorry. I have no idea how you are in your 30s and still thinking that water evaporates because of God. It is like one of the most simple, basic, fundamental sciences you can learn in elementary school, for one at that. Anyways, back to my thing. So yeah, simple stuff. And it was when I went back to school. I was entering through the car circle, because back in the day I used to be jumped by a car circle back in elementary school. I used to I had to have a car circle, and I could say this. I went to Skycrest Elementary School. I could say that. I can say that publicly. I can say that. Just so you all know, on my channel I've already discussed Clearwater High School being my high school. That's just public info at this point. Nobody has to guess what high school I went to, right? It's all so obvious. You all saw the images. It's like obvious. You don't need to know where I live, but you know where I'm coming from, right? It's just obvious. If somebody asked one of my teachers what Viz was like, and I say 12 years in the future, and the teacher would go, "Oh, Viz was such a great kid, you know, good kid, just, you know, follow orders, did this thing, did his work, put his work in time, great student. He went to Skycrest before he went to Clearwater." Anyways, that's a sidetrack, just to, you know, to get that out of the way. So there was this kid who was walking around, and he had material from Japan. You see where I'm going? He had material from Japan, and it had numbers on it and strange symbols that I couldn't read. The symbols weren't Japanese. When I looked at it, it was completely black and white. There was no color, just flashy drawings on it, big huge eyes on the cover, and I was like, what in the world is that? It happened to be Clannad. It was Clannad. Somebody had imported a Clannad manga from Japan over to the United States, in Florida, back in let's say, guessing when I was able to have a mind, around 2013, 2012. You could say literally as early as when I started discovering MM7 and I started creating MM7, that's when I fell upon anime. I saw a Clannad manga for the first time in my entire life back in 2012, 2013. So you all have a record of how long ago that was. That was 13 years ago. And once 2026 goes by, that's going to be 14 years ago. When I discovered that they had manga, you want to know the very first reaction I had when I discovered that they had this material? So when I had discovered this thing that they had been holding, it was in their backpack through something of a, let's say it was something of a spectacle. The younger me used to be used to small backpacks with huge logos on it. Some of my very first backpacks was a Transformers backpack. I think I have a image of that, but you know, maybe a little too, let's say, okay, you know what, I'm taking a photo of that. I'm gonna put that on the channel. It's gonna be a photo of it. So I used to carry something like that around, and I had like a Lightning McQueen backpack, a Transformers backpack, a Need for Speed. No, it's not a Need for Speed. It was like more like something Hot Wheels related, Hot Wheels backpack. I usually constantly circle through backpacks when I was young at an age. So then I saw that the kid had a more of a rectangular backpack. I was like, what is that? And he would take out this manga thing, and he would flip through a page in the wrong direction. And I'm like, hey, you're turning the page wrong. Turn it this way. And he was like, that I'm doing it right. Leave me alone. Who are you? And I'm like, well, you're turning the page wrong. The page, you have to turn the page left. And they were like, no, you have to turn the page right. You have to do it the other way. And I'm like, they're reading from a different side. And I was like, huh? I was like, not be able to perceive what I was watching. And then when I read and I looked at the book, the entire manga was just in a different language. And I was like, I can't even read that. I was like, what is that? Is that Chinese? So of course I was a young kid. I had no idea what I was doing. This was 2012, 2013. Even though I was making on 7, you could say it was a quite grim of a story. I still had the mind of a child. Technically. I was going into an adult fast, but I still had certain thoughts left in my head that were that of a child. And I was like, is that Chinese? And he was like, no, that's Nihongo. Japanese. This is Japanese, Japan. He didn't say it fast, of course. He butchered his words because most kids who were international did not exactly speak English fluently, so they had an accent when they said it. So they were like, it's Japanese. It's Nihongo, Japan. And I was like, oh, what is Japan? And you can guess where this is going. I was like, what Japan? What is Japan? And I was like, Japan is another country. It is far away. It is like near China. And I was like, okay, that is so cool. I didn't know that. And you can say then this. So it was Clannad. How do you know it was Clannad? So I didn't know it was Clannad. I was like, okay, so what is that? And is it cartoon? Is it from Marvel? And he was like, no, I don't know what that is. So he didn't even know what Marvel was. So this person didn't even know what Marvel was, and he was reading a manga, you know. And so obviously when I was young, never cared. I couldn't care about the interaction. I just, like, next thing I did was go over to look for caterpillars on the sidewalk. So you can see where I was. I was still looking for caterpillars on the sidewalk. And my teacher, whenever he took me out for recess, I didn't really much capture all of the diversity that was going on in my school that was starting to, you know, get more visible. Over time, this was starting to get way more visible. So as you all know, this was around 1st, 2nd grade, and I was still unable to perceive what was fully going on. And I think the next thing I saw right after, like, say a few weeks, my dad was just playing something on the TV, and it was some Dragon Ball cartoon, some Dragon Ball for Kids thingy. It wasn't even on 4Kids. It was just like straight up on Cubo, you know, whatever. It was on some program. I know it was definitely on 4Kids and Cartoon Network. Dragon Ball was definitely on there. But for me, back in the day, was Unimas, and I relied on it. It was a Spanish version of it. I found right. It was Spanish, but it was sometimes in English for like the English years. It was Spanish specifically, and the show was speaking in Spanish. They had like the Spanish dub version of it. It was quite different, so y'all know. English and Japanese dub wasn't the main focus for Unimas. Unimas was a literal channel for mostly Spanish-speaking speakers. So when I watched it, of course, I watched it in like either English or Spanish. And no, not the meme. Like, legitimately was in Spanish and English. So I looked at it and I was like, what is he doing? What is this guy? And that's like, oh, it's Goku. It's Goku. Like, he's fighting Vegeta, and I'm like, what is that? What, Goku? Who? Goku? That sounds like a fruit. I mistook Goku's name for being a fruit name. You know, it's like, that sounds like fruit. And Vegeta? What is Vegeta? Of course, I didn't say Vegeta the right way, because my dad, when he described it to me, he was using an accent. So he said like, the Vegeta, like Vegeta, and Goku. And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds like food. Now, ironic enough, they are actually definitely inspired by names of food. So y'all know. Their names are literally inspired by foods and wine, and you can go into all of that on your own. So yeah, that's another time when I was discovering anime. And also, you know, the internet had to be a thing in my life, so of course, I wasn't able to go through the internet a little bit more properly until 2014, but around the 2012-13 margin of years, I did sometimes go onto my phone, the phone of my parents, which, if I'm right, only until, let's say, 2010s did they start using phones that weren't like fully buttons. They had button phones way long ago before they had like screen phones. So before anybody asks, say, why I didn't go into their phones, my parents weren't the type to care about much of phones until the phones started having screens, and they were like, you know what, let's spend for phones with screens. So they did that, invested in some of these phones with the screens and all that going on, right? That jiffy was something like around 2011, 2015. They were attempting to get some better stuff in the meanwhile, right? They needed it for like photo taking, for conversations, for calls, or, you know, everybody was trying to get new phones. So I remember happening to pick some of their phones, and I was trying to search something. This was late in the around the 2010s. It could be way farther than. It could be 2015, 2014. Could be 2013. I couldn't know. I had to literally piece this together soon. And when I was going throughout there, it's just vaguely 2010s. I would look on the phone, and one of the first results I would see would be that of, let's say, it would be Sonic, right? It would be for Sonic, because I knew what Sonic was. I didn't know was that until like 2012, 2011, 2012, you could say. I was like, oh, Sonic, cool. So, yeah, I didn't really put much attention to the Sonic thing. I just knew, oh, it was some blue hedgehog character, and it was called Sonic the Hedgehog. That's all I knew. Sonic the Hedgehog. It was Dragon Ball, Clannad. And then I remember falling upon a result that said, wait a second. That looked familiar. That looks like the Clannad thing. And the kid who sold it to me, he said that it was just it was like a Japanese book, and the title actually read Clannad. So y'all know I know what the Clannad characters look like. He told me it was Clannad. He was like trying to say it, but he was butchering it because of his accent, because the kid didn't really speak fluent English. And I was still a kid, still slightly stuttering over some of my very small words. You know, I was still there. I wasn't stuttering, but I was certainly stuttering over trying to speak faster, because my interest was different back in the day. So I looked at it and I saw the similar characters from that manga I saw, and it was just a AMV of it, and you can see where this is going. So I saw the AMV, and if I do find that AMV, I might find the AMV, but if I don't find that AMV, I might not find the AMV. The YouTube platform was significantly different back in the day. We had Dailymotion. TikTok wasn't even TikTok. It was just something else. We had Justin TV was still around back in those days. We still had that, like MySpace and all that. Yeah, we still had those things. Like we were still going through many trends back in the day. The internet privacy protests, like Kosa was going Sosa and all that. So way different time. Like we had the entire presidential election going on, and Donald Trump was going to be, sadly, president. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. We had the Obama versus I forgot his name, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes I need to start remembering their names. I think McCain. I think it was McCain. I don't know. But that's besides the point. Yeah, this was like, I discovered that video, and it was AMV of Clannad. It was a very low quality AMV of Clannad. It was like extremely long ago. If I find that video, it might just tell me what date it is. Okay, editor me, do your job. If you do find it, just put the year it was posted in. So yeah, something like that. And I will say this wasn't on my own account on YouTube. This was like a borrowed thing. Like my parents had started accounts like extremely long ago. Like it was around the early 2010s, like extremely long 2010s. Besides that, I clicked on it, and I was like, what is that? That is so weird. But I kept looking at the girls. You're gonna start to see where this is going. And I was like, the girls had big eyes. The characters had like these extremely silky, spiky hair. You know, I was so young, I didn't even know how to describe it. I was just looking at it in awe, and I was like impressed. And I was like, what is this? And then I saw the scene. You know what I'm talking about. I've seen different scenes. It was just really, it was not so good quality. But back in the day, that's what took my attention. Like the internet was still a novelty. It was still a novelty back in the day. And if it is copyrighted, I probably won't even play the audio. So, you know, if I do find it, you know, as a matter of fact, let's just continue on, because editor is gonna find it and he's gonna probably explain it, you know. But yeah, I just saw a bunch of cool stuff, and you know, the edits were all kind of vague, so I don't even know. I can't even memorize it, but if I do find it, editor is gonna explain it. But yeah, that was some of the very first times. And I think right after I just started playing a bunch of videos of just people playing mobile games, and then I continued on with the day. It was until like 2014 that I start going back in, 2015, 2014, that I start going back into like trying to discover what some of that was. And just so you all know, Times were extremely different in the 2010s and 2000s. Anime was still like a niche thing. It was a thing that not many people knew about. I didn't even know there was an anime community. And let's get into that. Let's get into the darkness about it. So, not only did I happen to go by a kid who had a manga of Clannad around him that was in Japanese, there were other times where I would fall upon kids who had similar things on their body. Like they would have Marvel comics, little kid stories that they got from like what book fest or whatever. I don't even know what it's called anymore. I'd hope I'll probably find it. But it was some type of thing where we gathered books and we would just buy them off the library that would put them on for sale that we had as kids. I definitely got lots of Captain Underpants books. I definitely got lots of like those, what's it called again? It was like a side story. It was like a different story of some like character that fought against large monsters. I know it was something to do with a mouse and a robot. I think it was with a mouse and a robot in it. If I can find that, editor me, please place it down. But yeah, that's what I was reading. And I was reading Captain Underpants. I was reading lots of kid stories. Just think of any humongous, well-known kid stories, especially Curious George. I did Curious George too. And I also did get a few pencils and little cool things around someone there. There was no anime to be found. There was no anime to be found in those bookstores, the little library that we had in my school in Skycrest. And because anime was a niche thing, let's get into the harsh reality of how this is gonna go. So, I was not exactly unexposed to some sort of take back from people noticing that I discovered what anime is. There are some people who were able to discover anime the same time that I was, but they had a quite different reaction to it. It was in Japanese. They were like, the characters looked cute. The characters looked really strong, had really spiky hair. They were black and white. Or they saw on a TV and they saw a bunch of anime girls going hey hey ha da 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 da, you know, stuff like that, singing all these cute anime girls on their commercials or something. Maybe Hatsune Miku appeared on the commercial at some point. And just so y'all know, I happened to fall upon some really funny video of that very thing going on. And my game just reloaded. Absolutely. Let's just put that's gonna be in my video. Let's just do that right here. Of course they would. Of course they would reload this thing. Go downstairs. The game had to reload. Okay, we have to do this again. But basically, before the game just randomly teleported me out of the game and just restarted everything. I mean, I guess change of scenery would change to a great thing. It's doing this in the middle of the spot. Somebody's cleaning where I'm at. So, when that was happening, let's say a few people fell upon the Discovery anime, like say from 4Kids, Cartoon Network, Vortex, I butchered that. Vortex for Kids, Cartoon Network, Cubo, some of the very known channels you all probably remember. I know Disney Plus existed, Disney XD, stuff like that. That's an entire story in its own. But yeah, we still watch TV. Back in the day, we kids back in the 2010s used to actually watch TV shows from cable, from like actual antennas. Like if the show went down, it was because the broadcasting company had issues. Now the ones in Florida were kind of sloppy back then, so never the TV channel did go out, as either because the antenna was, you know, goofing around, or the broadcasting, you know, channel station was just playing around and suddenly the channel would just black out and you wouldn't be able to tell what's going on. So if anybody asks if I saw Cartoon Network back in the day, yes I did. And I even played browser games in Cartoon Network. But I'm sidetracking. So these kitty people were to discover anime, and some of the very first things that they would do is, well, get really, really discriminative about people knowing what anime is. So what this started was a really early on hate or dislike to Asian people in my school in Skycrest back in elementary. So now these were just elementary kids school, elementary kids, right? Now they're all adults, so you all know. Of course, I was a kid back then, so they are adults now, so they know what they did. So these very same kids, they were to discover Asian culture, and they would later, every time somebody was found to be enjoying a manga, or somebody was wanting to get their hands on looking at a TV station that broadcasted, let's say, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, or let's say, I think there was Digimon. We had Yu-Gi-Oh, classic ones that got westernized, that got localized, Sailor Moon. We had Guts appear, but Guts, that was somewhere else. That was an entirely different story. But we had those are the main contenders, and those are the very first ones that people were discovering. But these people, whenever they found somebody watch anime or find manga on them, manga specifically, if anybody knows what manga is, you know what I mean. So they were to find these, and every time a kid would find somebody with that material on their body, they would start saying really rude things about them. They would say, that is Japanese garbage, it's Chinese Asian trash. And I would go, hey, don't say that, that's really mean. And I didn't even know what Asian was. So you all know, back in the day, I didn't even know what Asian meant. That it was just like a word people say, and I was like, it's just a word people say that for people who they assume was stereotypically had thinner eyes, which is not true. They're still humans. And back in the day, I didn't know. I was a really young kid, and the same kids were just saying, "Oh, these are Asian trash." And I was like, "What? What is that phrase?" And then I started noticing how it hurt people. So that's when I started going, okay. So besides me playing around with Class Dojo, playing around with my grades, playing cool math or stuff, arcade B hats, stuff like that, people were starting to pick on people for watching anime, just anime in general. And they were like, well, if he watches anime, he must be gay, he must be a girly, he must be weird, he must be a weeb. And I didn't even know what weeb was, just so you all know. But this was long ago. Like, weeb being even said in my school was like a rarity. So they were like, oh, it's just gay, it's weird, it's girly. And I'm like, then it makes no sense. Now, of course, back in the day, I was still shy, so I didn't just confront these people for saying those rude things to the people who I thought were Asian looking back when I was younger as a kid. And these very people were they were just kids. So when they were saying these rude things, it was because their parents were also really not so friendly to the entire genre, entire medium of like art, of anime as general. And so when they were to go to these kids, every time somebody did that, I would go, hey, don't say that, that's not nice. I'm gonna tell my teacher. And they were like, don't do that, you tattletale. And like, I don't care, I'm gonna be a tattletale, I don't care, don't say that, that's rude. I didn't even know why, but something in my body told me early on that if I defended these people, that I'm doing something right. Like, I didn't even know if what I was doing was right or felt right, but it felt right back in the day. And I was like, I think defending these people would be so good, like a good thing to do. I felt that it might be just worth it. It might be the thing I need to do. And so I happened to fall upon more anime. I fell upon Nagi no Sakura, A Lull in the Sea. I fell upon it. It was on a video, so y'all know. It was a channel that would repost anime back in the day. It would repost anime, would crop out like a part of the screen sometimes, maybe put a vex file or factor or graphic on top of the anime, and they would just like change the hue of the anime, right? It was like really vague, and the audio would be like equalized. The audio would be equalized so that the copyright audio wouldn't be detected. But because YouTube's system of moderation was way different back in the day, and videos like those didn't even have to be like that much, they didn't have to be censored or as edited as much, right? The system, you could have just gone away with posting anime clearly like that, just change the hue, that's all you have to do. But they did it in case, because people were thinking ahead of time, and they would equalize the audio, crop the anime a little, or change the hue or put a graphic on top. And when I fell upon that occur, it was through a few series of multiple videos putting the anime, right? Just the anime in general, and just putting like large clips together and cutting out 1 to 2 seconds every few, let's say 8 to 9 seconds, there would be 1 or 2 seconds being cut out, and then 1 or 2 seconds of context would be just cut out. And the anime had an equalized audio, so I didn't get to hear the beauty of the soundtrack back in the day. But back in the day, because I was not more leaning into music just yet, I was still thinking the melodies in my head, but not necessarily that into music yet. Because most music around me was just a bunch of radio or rare MP3 downloads that I would get on the phone for like no reason, right? I just thought they were cool sounding audios, and now I don't even know what those audios are. So if anybody asks, I don't know what those MP3s are. And I would fell upon this anime and I'll go, wow, this is so weird. I don't know what this is. It looks strange. It was really blue colored, and the very first characters that would appear, some of the very first ones that I would see appear was that of Monica. Monica was the very first anime girl that I, saw, but besides the Clannad ones or the Dragon Ball ones or Pokemon ones or Yu-Gi-Oh or Digimon, right? Besides those, this was the first anime character I actually listened, I saw, and I even like had seen music with the anime character. Like I actually got to see that anime like just by myself. No like my dad is watching me, watching me with like popcorn and like Lays right on the side, just watching Dragon Ball as like Goku beats up Garu, right? Garu or Goro, whatever, and just beats him up, right? Just beats this guy, Ginyu. Yeah, the Ginyu Force. Yeah, the Ginyu, Captain Ginyu. I think it was Ginyu. Yeah, I watched so many animes. Just if I butcher a bunch of names, correct me on those. I'm sorry. But besides that, the first anime I watched alone, no like supervision. It was just something I wanted to watch. My mom wanted to let me just use the phone. She was like, just use the phone. I don't care. Just watch it. Just don't watch weird things. And give me the phone back because then I'll soon need it. And she was just taking a break. She was just in the kitchen and she was like taking out bread. It was around 11 in the morning. And I don't know what date it was, but it was definitely 2015, 2014. YouTube was way different thing right back in the day. And these posts might be older. They might be older. They might not be from 2014, 15. They might not even exist because if Enemy tries to check, Enemy probably won't find it. But they might be gone now because YouTube's been deleting lots of old videos as of now. So if I don't find them, I don't find them. But yeah, it was that. And I would find these videos. They were obviously definitely pirated. And I'd watch the characters move around. Their eyes would blink. The music would be trippy. The music would be super ethereal sounding. It was just like really calming. And now, if you were to get into the mind of what I was like in 2014, 15, when I discovered anime like that, more like by myself, finally, and just watching it, I could tell it was something Asian. By then, after all the discrimination and all this stuff going on in my Skycrest, going on, it wasn't too serious, but certainly existed. I was looking at something Asian for the first time, something animated that was Asian. I could tell it was like, okay, so this is definitely a really girly looking girl character in the series. I thought that in my head. And she had red hair, nice white skin, cute blue eyes. Her eyes were just huge. That's what I thought to myself. The eyes were huge. And this boy character had brown hair, similar eyes, blue eyes, something like that. And I was just like, whoa, that looks so cool. And the backgrounds look so detailed. Funny enough, that's still a top 10 anime of mine, so y'all know. It's ironic that anime is still running my top 10. So, the first anime I discovered that I watched by myself, besides all the other ones on my TV channel with my dad or through VHS. And I probably said VHR back in the video. I disclaimer if I said it's probably VHS. Yeah, so that's the first one I saw unsupervised. No, my parents were watching over YouTube videos, just obviously pirated, edited versions of the episodes. and I was just watching it progress. You know, it was like the plot wasn't American. The plot wasn't American, and the characters spoke like Japanese, and there was like subtitles. There was English subtitles, and I was like, "What? Huh? Desuka, Desuka. What's Desuka?" And then there were subtitles appearing every time they said something, and I was like, "Huh?" So you all know, back in 2014 and 15, I was, you know, because of me starting to watch things with subtitles, my reading skills started to go up. So if anybody knows why the second saga started to get more descriptive in nature, it's because my reading vocabulary started increasing because of me starting to read subtitles in videos. So yeah, I was starting to actually read. Like, besides books, I read subtitles from like videos on YouTube. So thank goodness that happened, because I would have definitely not passed 4th grade if it weren't for all the reading I did. So, but you know, that's a side note. Yeah, the anime itself was just, it was alluring to me, and I was young, so y'all know, I was young, 2014, 15, just like long ago. Like some of the very earliest videos of me recording were with my stuffed animals, so you can get a perspective of where I was still at. I looked at it, and every time I discovered new characters, there was this like really pretty blue-haired character. Just like kind of blue purplish hair, blue eyes, nice white skin, same thing. Another character, boy character, came in similar, but his hair was a little lighter than the other characters, and also had similar eyes. And then we had the little sister character come in, and we had their parents and the big sister come in, you know, privacy and all this stuff, and it was just crazy. So the music was like the focus of me. I think the music and their eyes, like the eyes and the music, were the thing that reeled me in. I was like, why is he doing that? So once I started getting into the 3rd episode, I started getting immediately immersed. I was like, this is nothing that like what I used to watch. This was 2014, 15. Like, anime was just still niche. And Chi Reviews, if I'm right, started around that time. He literally started in that time. He was on forum posts before he went on the YouTube, so y'all know, to get a perspective of how long ago that is. So most content creators like Dennis was only just starting. The very show took me in, it reeled me in. I was watching it, and every time the scene changes, I was getting to see new artwork. And when I was, you know, I was young, and I was, you know, getting perceptive of how the world worked back in the day, a lot early on, so y'all know. I was wondering, how did they draw that? Did they draw it? Is it CGI? Because back in the day we had Transformers, so y'all know. So I was like, maybe it's CGI. It's not CGI. It was literally all painted. It was like literally done by people who drew that. Those are illustrations. Those are like, legitimately, everything you see in anime is illustrated. Besides possible CGI efforts for, you know, I think that might be too hard to animate. But it was the artwork, the eyes of the characters, and the music. And every time a character did something that was underwater, I was like, whoa, I've never seen that before. So you all get a perspective. The Avatar movie was watched. I watched the Avatar movie by then, but I didn't even know that there were going to be other things, you know, besides Avatar, where it showed characters going into the ocean, just swimming under. Because I knew of mermaids, but I never got to see a Japanese Asian version of what that looked like, right? If you understand what I mean. I was a kid, small world, small mind. I was expanding, but small mind. Had a limited knowledge of what other media looked like. So, and then every time I saw Monica do something that was like very adorable, I had to say this because people have to understand how my mind worked. I was like, wow, that is adorable. I didn't say it out loud though, because if I said that, my mom would be like, what is adorable? And I go, nothing. And then she tried to take my phone away, right? So I couldn't say anything out loud. So I had to keep this to my mind back in the day. So I watched and I kept watching the show, and I'm gonna click the screen just to make sure I don't randomly teleport. Okay, there we go. Let me just, there we go. So I'm not gonna leave the game. So as the episodes went on, I didn't know there was a second season, so y'all know, I didn't know there was a second season. When I was finishing through like every few clips and so, I was noticing that the anime had included romance. you'll see where this is going. I've never seen romance in a show in that entire time. No, not like romance, just like romance of that kind. Anime romance, not like the romance you see in movies, like cliche, the partner, the couple gets together at the end of the movie, they kiss, and dramatic music plays, and there's a pan shot of them going around, wind going through their hair, and they're kissing. I'm used to seeing that by then, and my parents would all tell me, "Hey, if you sweat, look away," and I'd look away. So that was one of the very first shows I watched with none of them watching me, when I noticed the characters blush, actually start liking each other, and I was looking at it. No one was telling me, "Look away. Look away, Viz." I didn't get told that. I just kept looking, and I was like, "What are they doing?" You see where this is going. When the main character, the main character is basically Monica, but you could say the boy character is, it's the main character. I think it's Monica, because she keeps being the focus here. When I started noticing all the crazy water animations, all the scenery, the music, and the dances, and the little projects that they would be doing, and the little dramatic scenes that they would be doing, and the drama that went on, I was starting to get, for the first time, the very first show that would introduce me to drama, romance, comedy, Asian culture, like ocean culture, all this other stuff, preservation, conservation, all those crazy cool stuff that I only saw Jane Goodall for. Just so y'all know, I knew what Jane Goodall was back in the day. Yeah, Jane Goodall. I knew what she was back in the day. Like David Attenborough. I've seen documentaries of animals. My parents were like some of the very first to show me those, and then I discovered the rest on YouTube. And yeah, I would be watching videos of like space, but also documentaries of animals, so y'all know. So this is before I knew anime. So whenever I saw them, like anime, take a more personal, more character approach type of scene and plot, I was just getting baffled at like every extreme turn that the characters took. And I was like, what is she gonna do next? And then when I saw the characters like start to hug each other, or maybe the girl was just like, Monica was just too nervous to meet the main character, or the main character thought that Monica liked them and stuff like that, I was like, why are they doing this? This is so confusing. And I was trying to keep up, and my brain was 2015, 2014 me, so I obviously this was new to me, and I was like, I was getting, you could say the feeling was like, it was confusion, but it was also like staggering dead interest in what was going on. I was feeling confused, but I was also incredibly involved and immersed and just going, whoa, this is so dumb, but this is also so good. I don't know why, but it's like, it looks so dumb, but it looks so cool. And I can't stop watching it. I can't stop looking at it. So I didn't know about the second season, so you all know, but when that first season was ending, it was leaving me on a cliffhanger. I had to watch the second season. I did watch the second season later on, so you all know, and that wasn't too far away from now. But when I did finish the first season, I didn't get to watch the anime again until like way later, like let's say months later, because I was getting into like Clash of Clans and Angry Birds and all these other games back in the day that were explained, like Subway Surfers. That was starting to become a niche thing, like Bad Piggies and things. So I think that was some of the very first animes I've seen. And we also had Glitter Horse, we had Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Zexal was coming out, we had Beyblade coming out. My other cousin, he has a name which I won't say because unfortunately these people have a huge connection with other people, so if I say that, they're gonna I basically dox where they are at, so I can't do that. So the other cousins, not the ones I'm with at, but the other ones, like way back in the day, he would be already watching anime. He wouldn't even know what it was. He would just say that he'd be watching Beyblade or Yu-Gi-Oh, and it would just appear on the TV, Pokemon sometimes, and maybe Digimon would appear, and it's like the old version, the English version of Digimon. And he'd be seeing it, and I'd also be there just to watch it, and we'd be watching on my grandmother's TV. And that was also cable, so you all know, it was antenna. And it was purely analog, it was old. It was an old TV, so you all know. It was like put on the high up on the shelf. So we'd watch those, and every time a character would have a crush on a character, why after I watched that, you know, Nagi no Sakura, A Lull in the Sea, I would become more perceptive to the drama plots and I'd go, oh, I know what's gonna happen next. Just know that I was a kid saying that. I was a kid, not a teen. Like, this is before I went into middle school. And middle school was the time I discovered everything. Everything. And I remember passing by a commercial back in YouTube in 2015, late 2015, and it would be a little commercial for High School DxD. And if anybody is cultured enough, you know what High School DxD is. And that was in 2015. It was a commercial for it. Of course, it wasn't the NSFW stuff. It was SFW. It was like rare commercials that would pass by. It was in Japanese, of course, because I couldn't understand it. It was on YouTube. And it was a commercial for High School DxD's premiere, like broadcasting its schedule. And I was just going, that looks super strange. Looks odd. Looks like that Asian stuff I've been seeing. I didn't even know. I think I was starting to get familiar with anime. I didn't use anime, but by then I was starting to know what anime was. Like, I knew the word, but I didn't fully perceive it. Yeah, I was still like using anime, but I didn't know what it's meant to other people. So I kept saying Asian, and whenever I said anime, it was kind of rare. And so I was like, it looks like that Asian stuff. And right as the frame went by, the girl, or the main girl, the red hair character, and I think I know her name. I think I'll put it on the screen. Edit me. If I even edit this video, probably not even gonna appear, but just think of the High School DxD main character girl. Like the girlfriend of the main character is, you know, they get together soon. I just saw her huge, massive badongers on the screen. And it wasn't, no, it was the censored, of course. It was just not like, it was the SFW, so y'all know, it was SFW. And it was just a huge badongers came onto the screen. It was just like a happy giggle thing, you know, the characters, you know, doing funny things, and it was cartoonish, and it was comedical, you know, to promote the show. And then I saw the huge badongers on the screen, and I was like, whoa, I've never seen such huge circles on this girl's chest before. That's what I was saying inside my mind. I was like, what are those huge circles? They're so huge. Those were her breasts. This was 2015, so y'all know. This is 2015. I was like, what are those huge badongers? I didn't even say badongers. I was like, what are those huge circles? Those huge circles. Those are the first like thoughts I had. I was like, whoa, those are large, huge. They're like, they remind me of watermelons. That's all I had, watermelons. And I didn't even pay attention. And then out of shock, I was like, I scrolled up, and I was like scrolling up. I scrolled up immediately in response. And I was like, whoa, what did I just see? It's probably bad for me to watch. I probably shouldn't look at this further. And I changed the video to like a mobile game app, you know, gameplay of just, you know, Angry Birds again. And then I was just like, from the shock, I was like, whoa. And that was some of the very first times I had to see a show, right? A show, like a split seconds of a few show that where the character had like huge badongers, like huge breasts. Like, and that's like the first time I'd ever seen something like that. I was like, whoa. I've never seen that before. That looks so weird. It looks like if I keep watching, it's bad, right? My parents would tell me it's bad and I probably shouldn't watch it. You know, that's just my reaction as a kid. And of course, that changes because in middle school that changes, but you know, that's an entire story of something. But I hope, you know, basically that's how I discovered anime. I discovered it from a kid passing by who had Clannad on his, you know, manga. He took out strange backpack. He spoke with an accent, spoke differently from different kids. I was used to like the kids who spoke more English and Spanish, but this one spoke more of a very Japanese accent inspired English. And Chinese kids were more common, so it could have been, so they could have had a Japanese Chinese traditional, you know, origin. There's Chinese kids, definitely have Chinese kids in there. So yeah, that's basically how I did it. It was Clannad, I'm gonna list it, Clannad, Dragon Ball, Digimon, Pokemon, Nagi no Sakura or A Lull in the Sea, Yu-Gi-Oh, Blade, in, I think, High School DxD, but it was also... What was that one show? It was a show I knew. Oh! It was... Oh, Saint Seiya. Yes, Saint Seiya. I also happened to fall upon Saint Seiya. Yeah, Saint Seiya. I think Saint Seiya was some of the very first, yeah, as well. I think Saint Seiya was like extremely common. Like, I think I saw the old version of Saint Seiya that was playing on the screen. So, yeah, there was also that. Ooh, I'm getting a load of like flashbacks right now. Okay, that's it. I haven't been in the video on that one. The video is like already long, so stay safe out there. Don't think anything else. For real. Be nice to people. Don't be racist, right? Don't do the same thing the other kids did. They were just kids, but you know, don't do the thing they did. No discrimination. Share kindness. We need leaders out there. In a world where an age of misinformation is, you know, at the highest, and where facts are for some reason considered a form of harassment, we need leaders like you out there who are able to, you know, fix things as it goes going. You know, if you want to join the movement, go to the Discord server, link in the description below. Leave a like to the video because it will put this video anywhere else. And because we already passed the 5K subscribe goal, we're trying to reach 7K, 10K. If we even get there, and if we get past that, even more insane. That's all I have to say, basically. Now, if I don't edit this video, shame. What a shame. But if I do, I'm probably going to do it. You know, I'm probably going to finish the VTuber video first, and then I'm going to do this video. And then, you know, basically we have Christmas coming on. Do I celebrate Christmas? No. I don't. Getting out of the way. Anyways, that's it. Stay safe. That's all I have to say. No, side note. You know what? Side note. Let's just do that before, you know, clip this out of context. You know, so y'all know, I think literally it was, I literally discovered hentai like way like, during my middle school years. So y'all know, it wasn't too far until later I rediscovered High School DxD. So y'all know, I rediscovered High School DxD in like my middle school years. So that's all I have to say. Insane, right? Insane.